All right, you're considering moving to Florida and you don't know what part to move to, north versus south. Well, stick around in this video. We're going to discuss the main differences between the two. And starting off for the first difference is the climate. Down here in South Florida, where I'm currently at, it is a very hot day in mid-November. The rest of the country is getting kind of cold. It's snowing in Ohio, New York, New Jersey. It is hot. It's 80 degrees down here. It is bright. It's sunny. It's not as humid as it normally is, but it is a very hot day in November down here. No snow in sight, high 80s, and this is the type of weather that we have down here in South Florida. Very tropical. As you can tell around me, there are palm trees, coconut trees, and overall it's a very bright blue day. Nice green grass, nothing's dying from the winter, and this is going to relate and compare to North Florida. So in the Panhandle currently, going all the way to Jacksonville, you have temperatures that are getting into the 40s and 50s. It is a very cold place compared to South Florida. So in North Florida, it's not uncommon for the weather to get below freezing. Actually, back when I was about 4 years old, it actually snowed. I still have this picture right here of me playing in the snow in Florida. Yes, that is right. It does snow in Florida. It can get mighty cold as well. And that changes the vegetation that we're going to talk about shortly. Because it gets cold in North Florida, it's very, very different. Also in North Florida, last winter, the place where I worked, the water actually froze into the walls. We got iguanas behind me. You would not find this in North Florida, but getting back to those walls. So in North Florida, where I'm at, where I worked, it got so cold. It went to 17 degrees Fahrenheit. This caused the water in the walls to actually freeze. Our toilets didn't work. Everything was frozen. It was completely frozen. We were not able to even flush the toilets because it gets that cold. As mentioned, when I was a kid, it has snowed before in North Florida, and you wouldn't get that around here. As I mentioned, it's 80 degrees, mid-November, still very bright, sunny. It's still very, very hot. It's not as hot as it was, but as you can tell, I'm sweating. There are iguanas on this beautiful golf course behind me, and that's definitely a major difference between the two. It's the climate. Now, you might be surprised to hear, but North Florida will actually get hotter per the temperature, so it's not uncommon to see the north part of Florida, Pensacola, Destin, Jacksonville in the summer to become much hotter on the degrees of Fahrenheit versus the South Florida. So that's something to be aware. The north can get into the triple digits more frequently than South Florida. This is due to the location of the jet streams, the Gulf Stream, and how in South Florida we have the Gulf Stream bringing a nice cooler breeze to help regulate the temperatures a lot better compared to North Florida. Now, while North Florida may get hotter per degree Fahrenheit, South Florida by far gets way more humid. The humidity down here compared to North Florida is very different. So in North Florida, it's very common to think it's very hot, to think it's very humid, but it's not as humid as South Florida. In South Florida, we have this humidity that it feels like a layer, an actual layer of a warm fog that is surrounding you completely. I just want to point out over here, this humongous iguana. As I always say in my videos, if you see an iguana down here, it's like a squirrel. Wherever you're from, most likely, just think of wherever you see a squirrel, we have iguanas. Large iguanas for sure. Now, get back to that humidity. The humidity down here can be quite brutal. It feels like a warm cloud of moisture. That's just think about you staying in a hot shower bathroom with the door closed, the window closed, no vent, and you're just walking in this constantly. This, unfortunately, a very, very high humidity environment for the most part throughout the entire summer. It's just unbearable humidity that I can't explain until you actually get here. The humidity here is unlike anything I've ever experienced. I've traveled to tropical countries before, and I feel like the humidity here is worse than Thailand by far. It's a very high humidity, but if you can get by that, it's not that bad for what you get because you get warm weather year round. I can be out here in November, December, January, and still feel like I can enjoy the day. Just think about where you may be. Even in North Florida, it does get quite cloudy during winter, but as you can tell here, it's a very sunny day. It's still bright, shiny, a lot of sun, a lot of heat. It gets you going, and once you make you go outside and exercise. So the weather here and the climate is very different than the north. As I mentioned before, North Florida can feel a lot more like lower Alabama or Georgia, and that's just consistent. Now, going back to the weather, this changes the vegetation a lot. So whenever I dream of a tropical area, I always think about beautiful coconut trees and beautiful palm trees and coconut trees. And here in South Florida, you actually get that. You would not get coconut trees in North Florida at all. So you may get some of these different types of palms, like similar to the palmetto palms, you'll get that in North Florida, and sometimes the Sylvester palms. But if you want that truly tropical type of environment where, you know, you got sea grape trees is growing in the wild, and you can grow mango trees, lychee trees, all these different types of fruit plants, and you definitely feel like you're in a tropical environment down here in South Florida. You don't get that in North Florida. Now, one of the benefits of North Florida, if you love the seasons and you have to have, you know, seasons in your life where you have to go through a winter season, say you're a bodybuilder and you're going to bulk and you're going to wear a big hoodie, or if you enjoy winter and the feeling of, you know, pumpkin spice latte season, North Florida is definitely a better spot for you. If you enjoy, you know, changing the leaves, you know, leaves actually falling, more of a northern vibe, but you don't want to commit to go too far in South Florida, North Florida might be a good spot for you for the climate. If you like seeing oak trees, as mentioned, the vegetation is different. There's a lot much larger southern style oak trees, southern magnolia trees. And if you like that style, North Florida would be better for you. If you like a more of a tropical vibe, South Florida would be the place for that. Now let's talk about price. So generally speaking, North Florida is going to be drastically cheaper to live. I feel like in the Panhandle, if you're wanting to move to Florida and you want the best bang for your buck, there's nothing else that beats the Panhandle of Florida. The one city in particular called Pensacola. If you look at a graph of the price to buy a single family house there compared to most of Florida or the average of Florida, it is drastically cheaper. You get some of the best beaches in the entire country, and you get it for a much cheaper price to, say, Navarre. Go to Navarre, Destin. Those are some of the best bangs for your buck for sure. There's some places in North Florida that aren't worth the price you pay. We might discuss in a later video what cities aren't the best value for your dollar to move to, and some of them are actually in North Florida. For what you get for what you pay for, it's not really worth it for most people unless you have to live there for a particular reason. Now, South Florida is drastically more expensive. There's two parts of South Florida that are very, very, very expensive. One part is the very, very true South Florida, what I consider is Palm Beach County, Miami-Dade County. Those areas are very expensive compared to the rest of Florida and the average of Florida. Then on the west side of South Florida, you have Naples. And Naples is a paradise for a certain demographic of people who love that type of environment. And those two areas are by far one of the most expensive counties and areas in the entire state. So if you're thinking about moving to the Palm Beach County, Naples, or Miami-Dade County, just be aware that the price per square foot is going to be drastically higher than it would be compared to North Florida. Another part of price, I have to say, is one of the downsides of Boca in general. The gas prices here are much higher in Boca than they are in other parts of South Florida. So I always, pro tip, go to Costco, get an electrical car, or commit yourself to drive into Fort Lauderdale to save a lot more in gas. So usually we usually do a weekly trip anyway around the Fort Lauderdale area, and that's where I get gas. I would highly recommend never buying gas in the city limits of Boca. It is some of the most overpriced gasoline I've seen in the state. Besides certain times in certain areas, Boca's gasoline is way too expensive per gallon, and it's just better to just get on at 95 during one of your regular trips anyway and load up on gas during a natural reason that you're gonna be there anyway. Just go get gas in Fort Lauderdale. It is not worth buying gas in Boca. All right, another major difference is politics. So if you're fleeing a blue state and you want to be in a very right-leaning area, one of the best areas to be in the entire state would be the Panhandle of Florida. That is a very conservative area. So if you're thinking about relocating and you're tired of certain types of politics and you want to be around a very conservative area, I don't think in the state of Florida you'll get much more conservative than the Panhandle of Florida, especially right there in the middle to the right of Pensacola and to the left of Tallahassee. That is by far one of the most conservative areas I've ever seen in the entire state. It's a stronghold for the right there if you're looking to relocate for a political reason. If you want a more blue style environment. You would get that a lot in Central Florida. I'm not going to really talk about Central Florida too much in this video. So I'm really comparing North versus South. I personally don't like Central Florida as much, haven't spent as much time there, and I've never really been interested into those areas due to the lack of beaches and a few other key issues in the Central Florida. But if you want a nice liberal area, very blue leaning area, Orlando might be one of the better ones. Inside Tallahassee or even Pensacola in the city area is very a good mixture of political leanings. All right, next is going to be the overall vibe. So if North Florida is very laid back, it's a very southern style of living, mostly calm and very laid back in general. So you don't have as much hustle culture. So if you're a go-getter, somebody who likes to go, always wants to do things and never stop, you might get bored in North Florida. Is a more laid back, chilled, go with this, pace of life, not too much of a go-getter mentality. You have a few, and if you are that type of mentality, you're probably going to be very successful in the area because of how relaxed everybody else is compared to you. You'll definitely get most deals done. You'll definitely stand out if you are a very ambitious person. Now here in the South, especially Palm Beach County and Miami-Dade, you have a lot of ambitious go-getters, a lot of hustle culture, a lot of people working multiple jobs. It is not uncommon for me to talk to regular people. You can talk to school teachers, you can talk to mail people, you can talk to somebody who works at your local Walmart. A lot of them have multiple jobs at all times. It might be because the cost of living here is so expensive, or everybody's just really chasing money here a lot more. This is a beautiful property, Premier Estate Properties. It's a very nice house, and the overall niceness of people, despite it might be certain areas that are a little bit better than others. I definitely find a lot more southern hospitality in North Florida. A lot of people will say please, thank you, and generally are just well mannered. You don't get that cold vibe from the Northeast that you get down here. It's probably because of migration trends. A lot of people migrate from the Northeast down here to the east coast of Florida, down here at the bottom. So you get a lot of that type of Northeast mentality down here. But in the north of Florida, you get a lot more of a southern hospitality or Midwestern vibe, something that you won't get as often down here in South Florida. So if you like, a little bit nicer people, you just want to be laid back, North Florida might be better for you. If you like more of a hustle culture and a little bit more go without please and thank you and either bothering getting to know your name, South Florida might be that spot for you. I've lived in both places, and you can find good or bad at both places. If you want more of a Caribbean tropical vibe, South Florida is definitely more of that part of the people. There's a lot more Spanish speakers down here. So if you're not comfortable with different languages, North Florida might be better for you. Most of the time, North Florida, they only speak English. Here in South Florida, there's definitely a lot of times that you're going to be surrounded with people who only speak a different language, and something that you would have to be aware of as well. And talking about different types of vibes with people, let's talk about population density. So down here, especially as you go down further south, it definitely feels like people are way more on top of one another. The population density goes way up as you get towards Miami. It's very urban, a lot of condos everywhere. As you go to North Florida, it's more common to have a single family home. The population density drops down drastically. So if you like to be around a lot of people and have that type of energy, South Florida will be better for you. If you're thinking about, you want to get away from people in general and be left alone a little bit, North Florida, you can definitely find places like that and be completely left alone where you don't have to see people if you didn't want to. Now we're talking about, North versus South. Let's get a general idea. So what is North and what is South? So true South Florida to me is the tropical area. So South Florida to me is West Palm Beach down. So West Palm Beach down to the Keys, Miami, and Naples. Those are very, very tropical, has a completely different vibe compared to the rest of South Florida. Now those cities like Tampa and Orlando and a few other ones like Fort Myers, it's semi-tropical, but to me, gives me coconut trees. The vibes are very different, and South Florida is to me a very tropical vibe, and there's only certain areas of Florida that are like this. Most time you would not find houses like this in Orlando or Tampa. So you got coconut trees, nice landscaping, everything is very tropical, and of course iguanas. You don't get iguanas, so think about where you see an iguana. That's South Florida. North Florida to me is anything, so that's Ocala, Jacksonville, Jacksonville, Tallahassee, Pensacola, and Destin. Those make up North Florida. Now, which one's the best one to live in? Well, that's up to you. Do you want to be around people? Do you want a tropical environment that's always hot, warm, or hotter? That's gonna be South Florida. If you want to be laid back, relax, have a nice, calm, chilled life, North Florida is the spot to be. If you like your beach sand white, North Florida. If you like your beach sand white and your water green, North Florida. If you like your beach sand light brown and your water blue, South Florida. Those are definitely some differences right there. So if you have any questions, you made it this far to the video, what do you like most from North or South Florida? What questions do you have for me? Shoot them in the comment section below, and please reach out to me. Here's my contact information when you're looking for your paradise when you're coming to Florida. Take care.